and good evening, and good morning, and good afternoon, and good night, and
Hang on.
good time to you.
Good time. That sounds very reminiscent of my welcome.
Yes. Apart from I butchered it.
Have you come round to my way of opening the show?
Just this time. Just this once. Welcome everybody to a very special episode of Theory of Anything podcast. We've hit episode 30.
Woo!
The big 30.
I think we should all have a little clap and applause. Shall we? Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. It's not actually a milestone, though, is it? To be honest.
No, it's not really.
Isn't it?
Maybe when we get to 50 or 100, then yeah. My name is Devon. I am one of your hosts. I am joined with me today by Andy, or Dad, or what some may call Paps.
What some may call
What
Paps.
some may call. Not who.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Excellent. And I have another co-host, Ford. You right?
Good day.
Nice. And because this is episode 30, we have a very special guest. Join among us today is a very good person. Please welcome Richard.
Jesus. Oh.
Richard.
Hello.
Hey, Richard.
How are you, Richard?
Another
Yeah,
little ripple of round of applause there.
really built me up there. So that's thanks for that.
All-round good guy. Yeah.
Richard will be joining us today, and we're very excited to have him for the whole show, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And because Richard's here, we're not going to have a random chat today, but as a reminder, we will do it next episode, and that will be we're going to be reviewing the film Café 2011.
I think the number at the end is just what year it came
I
out.
thought that, but that's not how it was written.
It's just called Café, yeah.
Yeah.
And it came out in 2011, yeah.
Richard, how do you feel about giving yourself a little bio, like introduce yourself sort of thing?
That would be good.
So I'm Richard. I am I'm actually the husband of Devon and Ford's sister and Andy's daughter Tila. So that's me, and then I live in in the Midlands as well, and I'm a social worker. I like to do stuff, I guess, like take action, which means that I prefer going out and doing stuff like sports, which is actually what I'm here to talk about today a little bit. So yeah.
Excellent.
And you're a bit of a geek, aren't you? You like a bit of D&D and
Yeah. I used to keep that quiet, but not anymore. Really.
Oh, whoopsie.
Now, for those uninitiated among us, what does D&D stand for? Can somebody enlighten us?
So D&D is Dungeons and Dragons. It's a role-playing game where you sort of sometimes you see it in the movies and they make it look very boring and kind of like they make it look like a bunch of smelly people sat around a table
with his hand.
yeah, but in reality, I suppose it's like fantasy a little bit, like the theme is like, I suppose, a little bit like Lord of the Rings would be.
Okay.
You basically there's some players who play like hero types, and they sort of go on an adventure that somebody called a dungeon master runs, and there's a lot of rolling dice.
It's an actual physical board game rather than something you play with a screen in front of you, I believe.
Although recently it has involved a screen because we can't actually meet together. So
that's a good point. It's put the scupper on that, isn't it? Yeah.
So as well as D&D, I sort of play board games as well, and then I also I like trains and stuff. So I'm building model railway at the moment, and whenever I go somewhere new, I tend to check out if there's any heritage railways around in that area. So
cool.
It's a fascinating life I lead. So.
We do happen to know that you've just recently come back from an intrepid trip up Mount Snowdon, haven't you? Did you not fancy going on the train that takes you up that journey?
I don't think the trains are running.
Are they not? Yeah, you walked it,
because
didn't you?
of COVID. Yeah, so we walked up. part of me fancied walking up and then getting the train down, but
Yeah.
because actually I find going downhill
I
is
do.
more challenging
More
for my
painful.
body. Yeah,
Hurts your toes, doesn't it? Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
say it hurts my toes, but it hurts my ankles.
Oh, right.
And I'm quite clumsy, so I tend to
yeah.
fall.
I slide it to the front of my shoes and squash my toes, you see. Maybe I need shoes
yeah.
that fit me better.
That might help.
Yeah, very good.
Excellent.
That's
Thank you
good.
for that, Richard.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We also have a anonymous comment
Oh,
about our podcast. Dad, would you like to read that out for us?
and it says, "Hey Siri of anything, I've just finished binge watching episodes 24 to 26, and I've got some thoughts. I really enjoyed having Beck on and found her conversation on psychology and faith really interesting. That was your dearly beloved wife, wasn't it? In
Yes.
episode 25, yeah. My favourite segment of those 3 episodes was the As Yourself that Devon brought, treating others as yourself. It was a good discussion. I think that was in episode 24, was it?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Also, the mentoring segment that Andy brought, that's me, was really good and rather thought-provoking. Although, here it comes, are you ready for this? Although, I find that Andy is sometimes not giving the other 2 enough time to share their opinions.
Oh, that doesn't sound like you at all.
Who said this? The review for Contact specifically comes to mind. So I spoke too much in Contact, I guess.
Well, you had more to say about Contact, didn't
I'm
you?
passionate about that film, aren't I? Yeah. Anyway, it ends on a high. Thanks, guys, and keep up the good work. So
Oh,
I
that's
won't
nice.
take it too much out. I know I overshare. I'm sorry about that. I'm doing it now, aren't I? Yeah.
Yeah.
I just fill the gaps that you 2 leave. So there we are.
Excellent.
You're going to jump to my defence. Devon did. I don't think Ford has.
It's great, isn't it? Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Anonymous.
Yeah.
I appreciate Mr. and Mrs. Anonymous in their
Yes.
them wanting to hear more from Ford and myself.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But from my perspective,
Yeah.
at least, Dad is quite a useful tool for me to use to just fill the gaps and just bring up ideas when I've got nothing to say.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh dear.
So,
Thank you.
but thank you for the lovely comments and nice message.
I'll try and keep my mouth shut this episode, shall I?
We all know how long that would last.
One day I want to have the shortest segment out of all
It's
of
never gonna
us.
happen.
Yeah. It never does it?
No.
Okay.
Brilliant. Okay, unless there's
Thank-
anything else we wanna say, on with the show.
Ford's segment subject.
In honour of our guest this episode, I've decided to tailor my segment to the area of his expertise, which is children.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I have a few questions, you see, about the way people bring up their kids.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
So perhaps you might want to leave for this one because
Yeah, I'll find out how it should be done. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll rectify all my mistakes. A bit late now, though. Yeah.
yeah. So there are some lessons that we're taught as kids, aren't there, that are meant to help us make our way in this wild old world of ours. But I think some of them do more harm than good, right? So a few examples I got here is be nice to everybody, and don't snitch, and go to your English literature classes, and
Yes.
and don't talk to strangers, and English literature,
Yes.
in general. These things I think have like a kickback that really damages, I think, kids' perception of the world. Any thoughts?
Who's going?
Tell me about your childhood.
But some of those things, Ford, you said, I think are good, wholesome, worthwhile. I can't say negatives. Some of them, one particularly, jumps to mind that isn't necessarily always good advice. I think making sure you attend all your English lessons is a good thing to do.
English language, but not English literature.
English
Like for the
literature
purpose.
is a complete waste of time.
Yes.
Well, hang on a minute. We're in the middle of doing English literature as part of our podcast series. We're looking at a Pilgrim's Progress book. That's English literature.
Yes,
You
no,
know,
if it's
I
not
don't
class.
disparage. Yeah, I don't disparage the subject in general, but I don't think
Okay.
it should be taught as at schools
right, okay.
because I think it should be a relaxing, sort of enjoyable thing.
Right.
But
Just
school,
reading in
schools-
general.
schools make it
yeah.
very clinical, and
Yeah.
it turned me right off. And as you know,
Okay.
I like to read now, but I hated it for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, you did. That's because
Okay.
it was very much like you have to read this and you have to tell me about this in a very academic kind of way
That's
of
that's
what
it,
the
yeah.
author was thinking or what attaches to what. So you're always analysing what you're reading rather than just reading for enjoyment.
I can see where you're coming from on that, but I think that's more of a you need to change the way English literature is taught rather than not
Probably.
doing English literature.
Yeah. Don't go. Yeah. Just skip
Yeah.
class. Yeah.
All right. Well, to be fair, that was
yeah,
a bit
go
of a
on.
joke one. I didn't really.
Okay.
Was it? Is that...
It's the only one we picked up on.
I was taking.
The other one I thought was don't snitch. There's that's that culture thing, isn't it? Of if you tell tales, you're a bad guy. But
Yeah.
sometimes we do have to. If we know something's wrong, we have to tell somebody else.
But yeah, it's like covering up for other people, and if you bring that into the adult world, those things can be very severe, can't they?
Yeah.
Like someone might be abusing someone else.
Exactly,
And don't
yeah.
snitch. It's not the sort of thing you want in the adult world because things get a lot more severe.
Yeah. But which adults are telling kids not to snitch?
I think what Ford's probably relating to there is I remember my teacher always telling me, "Don't tell tales," and I think that's probably where he's coming from on that. I can't remember the words they would use, but they never used the word "don't snitch." But I see where you're coming from. I think maybe, without context, it's not good, is it, to tell somebody that? But
But also maybe like you go to your parents with like you say your sibling just did this, like
Yeah.
and the parent says
In the
don't tell
house-
on your
in the
brother or
home.
whatever.
Yeah.
yeah,
And maybe it's the way you say it to the kid. Don't whinge or whatever. Maybe that's the takeaway. I don't know.
yeah. I think on this, like, you have to remember that children take things in a very, very different way to how an adult takes things that you say to them. And actually, they almost take what an adult says to them, especially an adult they really trust, like a parent. They take that as gospel, and they
Very
take
literal,
that as they take that as literally. That's exactly what they mean in that moment. They haven't developed those social skills to really analyze what's being said to them. So I think you're right. You do need to be careful what we say to children, especially when we're saying things like, don't tell. I think that relates to maybe, when we say listen to adults, it's not necessarily something that you should always do as a child because, they might be abusing you. So
Yeah.
But equally, I understand where those things come from. And I think if they're said in context and it's explained to a child rather than just, a throwaway phrase, it's okay then.
Okay. So I got down here like something like, boys, they tease you. That means they like you, right? Now, that's the thing they say to girls quite often. Someone's picking on them, it's because they like them. Doesn't that just set this person up to look for abusive relationships? If you know what I mean. It seems like a very dodgy thing to say.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into this. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with that one. If you say even though at that point in a child's life they're not going to, it's not going to cause a serious amount of harm for a boy to be, just picking on a girl unless it's, really gets to the point where it's bullying. But it kind of normalizes that behavior, and it normalizes that it's okay for boys to, be nasty, I suppose, to girls. And I think you're right that if you tell a girl that just means they like you, then they're then going to look for that as well in future, and then they're going to find themselves in abusive relationships because that's what they're being taught to look for from a very young age.
It occurred to me, it's like on the same subject, but slightly different way of thinking of it, looking at it. The often what I have noticed is that in parenting skills can be somewhat lacking when, and a particular evidence of that will be when a parent would tell a child not to touch something, and if you touch that again, you'll be in trouble, or some. That's a commonly used phrase. Or don't you do that, or if you do that again, you'll get a smack or whatever. And I'm not condoning that, but the point is, don't make any threat unless you are actually prepared to carry it out, because then when you don't, as a parent, if you don't carry through with any threat you make, and I'm not saying it's a good thing to smack children, I'm saying whatever punishment you're preparing to or threatening with, when you don't do that, then the child will learn that actually it doesn't matter what mum or dad says, because they never do what they say anyway, so they'll carry on behaving badly. The boundaries need to be drawn, and when a boundary is crossed, it needs to be very clear to the child what the consequences are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I didn't want to go down the smacking route, because I know that's a controversial, a hot topic here. My generation, perhaps, but this new generation of parents have a very different new approach to things. So, yeah, well, is that right, Richard?
In England, in a criminal sense, it's illegal if it leaves a mark.
Yeah.
In Wales, they've outlawed it completely.
Wow.
And things are moving that way in England. I actually, a friend of mine actually worked on the bill in Wales, which was quite a big, meaningful piece of work that he was working on, I suppose. But it is a controversial subject. As I say, criminally, if it doesn't leave a mark, then it's not illegal. But if you're taking a social work perspective, like mine is certainly not any kind, a sort of way of behaviour management that we would ever, recommend. Yeah.
I think our approach in parenting was you have to sit at the bottom of the stairs, wasn't it, boys?
Well, we did get smacked. Yeah, we did. On the bottom, in reality, very lightly, I think. But,
and very rarely, I think.
Still hurt.
Yeah, I think
it was the last straw, but
And I know there's plenty of good parents who very occasionally do, give it. I think it depends what you mean by smacking, doesn't it? As well, like if you're just giving somebody your child a light slap on the wrist, that's very different to bending them over and smacking their bottom. And I think the problem with it is, I suppose, is it's really difficult to determine what the motivation behind that is unless you're inside that person's head.
You can do it in anger or not, and it's a big difference, isn't it?
I think wherever the discipline is, you have to be prepared to carry that out. And as I say it now, I think I would parent quite differently to perhaps how I have in the past. But one thing I wouldn't do is threaten something without being prepared to carry that out. Yeah.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
With parenting.
This is a very awkward conversation with my two boys sitting here listening. Anyway, I don't know if that was the thrust or the direction you wanted to go down, Ford.
No, I mean, not really, but it's fine. That's great. It's all interesting, isn't it?
I guess it does fit the heading, the rubbish we teach children or kids, is that you teach by not following through on a disciplinary threat, let's call it that, whether it be sitting at the bottom of the stairs or a smack on the back of the hand, whatever, or go to your room, then you're teaching them that there is no boundary.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's one aspect of what you wanted to say. I know.
Another thing I thought of was be nice to everybody. Right?
Yeah.
And I think the problem with this is you risk the child growing up as a people pleaser, and that they're never willing to stand up for their own what they want.
That's a good point.
And their opinion of what they want and what they need, it goes way down, you know? I mean, be nice to people for sure, yeah, but when someone's being horrible to you, then
always
surely
be nice to everybody is not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah. And that is something I've heard, you know?
So I disagree with you a bit on that one.
Okay.
Because I think, how are you being taught to be nice to people? Like, what does being nice mean, I suppose? And actually, for me, being nice to everybody is treating somebody with the level of respect that every human being deserves, whatever they've done or however they're being to you. I think, and don't get me wrong, being nice is, for me, being nice to somebody doesn't mean you're always speaking softly with them, and you're always helping them out and giving them exactly what they want or need at that particular time. I think being nice to somebody is treating them with respect, but also challenging them when when it's necessary. So it depends what you mean by being nice, doesn't it, really? And that ultimately, because I'm a social worker, that's what I say to everything. It's like, what do you mean by that? So it can be quite frustrating for some people.
Devon, you haven't spoken much. What's your
taking
thoughts?
notes.
That's a very good point. We probably need to comment on that, just because this subject of bringing up children is particularly relevant to Devon, because in recent weeks it's been made public that Devon and Rebecca, who you have heard on this podcast before, are expecting a new member of their family at some point.
Oh, congratulations.
Yay, well done. Good, off the press news.
Yeah, kind of.
In April. So
yes.
I'm glad you're taking notes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts there?
I got conflicting thoughts. Like, sometimes you say something and then like maybe not, but then Richard says something, I'm like, oh, maybe yes. I wanted to say, in terms of going back a little bit, with the smacking children, it's not about leaving a mark. Apparently, it's illegal for a parent or carer to smack their own child, except where it amounts to reasonable punishment. Apparently. So, as you say, like with the smacking your child out of anger, I guess that's completely different than smacking your child for reasonable punishment.
I suppose that's the difficult thing to. I mean, I can't imagine what it must be like for any prosecutor to try and prosecute a parent, using that law. It would be impossible, I think, unless you've got overwhelming evidence from video evidence or lots of eyewitnesses or something. I think it'd be impossible to prove, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It could be the case that you've got a kid who's been beaten up black and blue, and it's like, well, okay, well, what did he do wrong? Surely nothing that he could have done wrong would amount to this as reasonable punishment.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a clear injury, then that's very different, isn't it?
But,
I would like to point out, I do know very good parents, by the way. I'm not looking at everyone and saying, "Oh, they shouldn't do that."
Yeah, you do know some good parents.
Yeah, this isn't like I'm judging everybody. It's just things I've heard that I thought, well, surely that's got unforeseen, negative connotations.
Yeah. I think the thing is, with kids, we can be very generalistic because we can't be bothered to explain what we actually mean. And sometimes I think explaining something to a kid is very important, as Richard kind of touched on. Because not every law is going to be the same for every situation throughout their life, is it?
I think an adult will pick up on all the nuances of what you're saying, but a child won't do that because they've not learned what those nuances are. So I think that's where you just have to be mindful of that throughout any conversation with a child. But I think I just want to pick up on what Ford said, where he said, you know lots of really good parents, and you're not meaning to to be any kind of judgmental sort of discussion or anything. And I think it's I completely agree with you. I think it's really important to say, when you're talking theoretically about parenting, you talk about the ideal, and when you're talking about the ideal, you don't take into account the emotions of the moment and things like that. And I think it's important to acknowledge that not everybody's perfect. I don't know any perfect parents, and I don't think I'd want to, because they wouldn't. It's human, isn't it? It's human nature to you don't really know how you're going to respond in a particular moment.
Yeah, because I often find myself walking down the supermarket or something like that, and then you see a parent shouting at their kid or something, and I do feel a bit of rage or something. Well, not rage, that's a bit strong. Coming up with me and thinking, oh, that's such a bad parent. But then it does occur to me, hang on, they have to live with this kid forever and stuff like that. It's not as simple as I think it is.
Yeah.
One of the worst things we do with our children is put them down, I think, verbally. You just talk about, but if you continue being called stupid or useless, for example, as a child, you're going to take that on board, aren't you?
Yeah.
And you can regularly, I've often experienced hearing that in a public place, or being sworn at and diminished. When you think, what's that child think of themselves now?
Yeah.
And that's certainly something we can teach our children through the way we speak to them. The way we speak and the words we use are important. We've covered that topic before on this podcast,
Yeah.
Well, that's me, I think.
Well done.
That's a big topic, yeah.
Yes. I was thinking
just sort of skimmed over the top of it, really, haven't we?
Yeah.
I was thinking of coming back with part 2 in terms of rubbish we teach kids at school, different subjects.
Like English lit.
Yeah, that's just going to be a long rant on English literature,
I quite liked English lit, if I remember.
Really? Oh my days. Of Mice and Men, what was the point?
Yeah.
So dumb.
Classic literature.
But it's American literature.
Oh dear.
Oh, so that means it's not important. Oh.
Yes.
I suppose it's not English literature, is it?
That's a good point, yeah. Remembering right now that most of our listeners come from America.
They do, actually. We've seen that on our stats. We've got more American listeners than anywhere else. Our cousins across the pond. Yeah, welcome all of you.
There are some great literature works from America. Just they're not English literature, I suppose. But
there you go. Yeah.
Disclaimer. Saved it.
Yeah. Moving on.
Devon's segment. Subject.
Okay, I guess it's time for my little segment coming along here right now. We have talked previously a little bit about the dreaded global virus that is currently going on and kind of the impact that's had on our lives. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about that, but not in the obvious sense. Obviously, everyone knows that right now we cannot go and visit people and have more than 6 people in the house, or we have to be 2 meters apart, or whatever it is. So I wanted to talk about the unexpected impacts of this virus. I would not say its name because YouTube doesn't like it.
Oh, really?
Yes. But everyone knows what I'm talking about anyway. So just for an example, for me, I've recently gotten back to work, and that requires a lot of standing and walking around a shop floor. And I didn't realise how weak my lower back has gotten. So I've had a lot of lower back pain just from standing up. So just training my muscles in my back to get used to being standing up all the time. So that's something that I didn't even realise was going on until I've had to, I guess, make a change and do something different over the past, how many months now? 6 months has it been? So I was just kind of wondering what anything that you've encountered that's been impacted by the virus that you wouldn't generally think would have been.
I was watching a film the other day, and for some reason, it just clicked in my head. I thought, hang on a minute, those people aren't social distancing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was like,
I think that all the time.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure this has been commented on before, but yeah, I found that really weird after the
It
fact.
is weird.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking after this pandemic's over, we're
Mhm.
going to be a lot more antisocial, I think.
Yeah.
In that way in which we're trying to avoid each other,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that lasts very long or not, but it's just a little aftermath of the thing.
Yeah.
Very
I don't know about you guys. Like right
Yeah.
now, I do just move away from people, like
Yeah.
naturally now out of instinct. And obviously, I didn't used to that much before. But obviously, if you see someone coming towards you, you kind of get out of their way more than you usually would.
Yeah. Definitely.
Just normally.
Yeah. I suppose one thing for me would be driving. I remember right back at the beginning when all this started and suddenly everybody's working from home and like me and my job, I normally have a lot of contacts, daily, and I'm driving around daily, visiting people and going to different meetings. And then suddenly that all stopped. We did everything by video calls, which meant I wasn't really driving. And I remember after about a month, I did a longer drive, and it just felt so alien to be driving a car. And it was just like, how do I do this again? And how do I keep safe whilst I'm driving? But equally, the other side of it of driving as well, the traffic, there was no traffic at all.
Yeah.
I remember right at the beginning. There was just nothing on the road, wasn't there?
Yeah. It was lovely.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
But it was brilliant. Yeah. But now it's almost the opposite, because nobody's getting public transport, nobody's getting the train or the bus anywhere, and which means that everybody who's trying to get somewhere is driving or getting a taxi, which means that the traffic is actually more now. Which is, I suppose it's frustrating.
I just thought of another impact that occurred to me today. Actually, at the time of recording, we're here on a Sunday evening, and today was our church's first Sunday service actually in the building. Now, we belong to a church of I don't know, 150, 200 adults plus families, so we've obviously been watching services that have been pre-recorded but broadcast at 10 o'clock every Sunday morning. So we're coming together to experience that as a church, but in our own homes, via YouTube. And but today was the first attempt at going back to something like normal, and that basically was we're planning that all of us regulars are going to be invited once a month to attend the service, which is just really watching the YouTube video in the church building. Yeah, but with a live person at the front leading the service. But so much of it's the same as what we would experience at home, but with one critical difference. When we're at home watching it, during the worship time, we can sing and then, experience the fullness of the worship. But at the church, because of regulations, we're not allowed to sing. Even with a mask on, everybody had to wear a mask, but we also had to. We're not allowed to sing. So during those 3 worship songs that were everybody else who wasn't in the building was at home singing along to, those of us who were in church were having to remain, well, we were humming, we were allowed to do that. It felt so bizarre. And it occurred to me, when we are eventually allowed, I do particularly, I agree with most of regulations surrounding, not all, but most. But this one about not singing, when I'm already 2 meters apart away from the next person, I'm already wearing a mask. Why shouldn't I be allowed to sing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think science has said that you don't project any further by singing than you do by talking. So anyway, that's another matter altogether. But what occurred to me today that's the point I was trying to make, that it will feel very strange when we are able to all be together again and sing and worship in one place with our voices. So that was an unexpected. It was nice. I still actually enjoyed being with my fellow brothers and sisters in Christ in church, but it has that slightly different feel to it. Yeah.
Would you have preferred to be at home?
No, we were able to have communion, obviously, slightly differently presented communion, and I think just seeing people you hadn't seen for a long while was also a nice bonus of being there. I think being there once a month is about right for me. I will be happy to be able to sing in my own home, in my own living room, I don't know if the people around me would be happy for me to be singing, but there we are. But yeah, the experience I think was valid. I will encourage anybody from our church who might be listening to take up the offer of coming once a month. But yeah, there are fors and against. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Another one I thought of is it's good news. In the increase of awareness for hygiene, we're probably getting less cases of germ spread. Like flu and all that sort of thing. Barring coronavirus, of course.
Maybe, but we could also be not doing our immune systems any good because we're living in such sterile environments.
Ooh.
So have we got to keep that up forever? Just to avoid the common bugs that we used to have immunity from because we didn't wash our hands properly, or
I think that would be interesting because that would affect children particularly because as adults we've developed our immune system a lot already, whereas children really, especially young children, But on that actually, and I know coming back to the subject of children here, but I think something that a lot of people, unless they have very young children themselves or they work with very young children, maybe they've not realised that the fact that we're doing all these things like social distancing, when professionals like health visitors or any health professional goes into somebody's home, they're wearing a mask and they're wearing gloves, and children who have never had much contact, especially if they're just born or only a couple of years old, they're learning that this is normal, and they're missing facial cues that adults give from their through their mask, because they can't see their mouths, or the wrinkles in their face. And actually we get so much from watching people's facial expressions, but children are not learning that now. They're not getting that really important part of their development. So I'm interested to see the long-term impact of that, and I'm quite worried about it for obvious reasons. But I think that's something that not maybe if you, as I say, if you've got young children, you probably thought about it, but otherwise you may not have thought about it, and it might be an unexpected impact, I suppose. I suppose how do we mitigate that? Because I know a lot of people use those visors, don't they, rather than masks, and maybe that's a much better option.
Interestingly, though, my wife, she works at a local Waitrose, but she always has worn the mask up till now. But now they're saying you have to wear the face mask as well as the mask.
Really?
Both. Mask as well as visor,
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if that's law or not, but the Waitrose here is saying that's the way they want to play it now.
Gosh.
Are they just trying to be overcautious to
maybe
set that example, I suppose, in some ways, but.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's they have to wear both, but they definitely want the mask now.
Yeah,
no matter what.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah.
I'll share one more just from me, real quick, and then we'll be finished with this segment. It's to do with work again. I didn't realise how much I love being at work.
Really?
Yeah, I knew I liked working, but I didn't realise how much it just clears your mind, I guess. You go out and you do something productive, kind of links back to my other segment about productiveness versus pleasure time or luxury time. and it just makes you feel. It kind of gives me some peace, I guess. Maybe financial peace where it comes from it. To know that I've put my hours in, I've worked well, and I will have supplied for my family at the end of the month or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it just makes you feel so good. I just love being back. I came back for my first day at work and I just felt so happy.
Good.
It was just really good.
Yeah.
Rewarding, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
obviously,
brilliant.
but I haven't had a job for the past maybe 5 months. And that's kind of, I don't know, made me go a bit crazy. But
I think it's valuable to be feeling you're contributing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's something spiritual in that, isn't there, as well?
There is,
actually.
yeah.
Feeling like you are part of, part of what makes the world go around, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's, as humans, we need to be together, don't we? We need to be, if we're all contributing, we feel more part of a community, don't we? I suppose, and that's a really
very good
really
point.
important thing. Yeah.
It's just so good being like. You just sound that's a really bad analogy, but I was talking to Rebecca about it. It feels so good to be a plus rather than a minus.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That just makes your brain so much, I don't know, clearer, I guess.
A net contributor. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all.
Definitely. Yeah.
Very good.
Cool. I think I'll wrap that up there. But yeah, thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Welcome, special guest.
So I wanted to talk about sports and exercise, really.
Oh.
And I confess I haven't listened to all of the podcast episodes. I know that it's probably not something that really comes up very often.
No.
So as something that I enjoy, sport and exercise, I thought it'd be good to discuss that. One thing that actually sort of made me want to talk about it is a conversation that you and I had, Andy, quite a while ago. It was about what defines a sport.
Yes, I remember. Yeah.
So I can't remember what we said at the time, but I just want to read the definition on Google that's come up. It says an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment. I just wondered what did you think about that definition? Because it was a big discussion we had at the time.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think I can remember now where it came from. I don't know if Devon remembers. We were discussing esports, weren't we?
Ah, yes, that was it.
And Devon, do you remember?
Yep.
Yeah, and the comments were about referring to esport participants as athletes.
Yeah.
And I found that really hard to get my head around. That unless you've caused you to get out of breath, I don't know how you could be classified as an athlete. But apparently in some esports, that's what those who are at the top of their game are referred to as. Yeah. But anyway,
yeah.
I think you need to have lost a bit of a puff and a wheeze to be able to call yourself an athlete, really.
I mean, I'd agree with that, I think. And I know that was my feeling at the time, I think. Obviously the definition talks about physical exertion, but it also talks about skill. And I've no doubt that those at the top of sort of esports and things, there's a tremendous amount of skill involved in that. And I don't think there's any denying that. And I don't think there's no room for sort of rubbishing their achievements.
No.
But as a sport, I think a sport has to involve, a physical element. But at the same time, this definition, I don't agree with some of it because it says competing against another or others for entertainment.
Yes.
I just, for me, sport's not just about entertaining other people.
No.
So, although I suppose it could be for entertaining yourself. Maybe that's what it means.
But I guess you could have an outlier that is for neither. So they could no one could be watching, and everyone taking part could be having a miserable time. That's no entertainment at all.
Maybe if they're playing football in the mud and rain on a freezing cold night.
I'd still class that as sport, but obviously there's no entertainment involved. I suppose.
Yeah.
I reckon that could be funny. They'd be slipping around.
Yeah, I think it'd be funny watching
Yeah.
people
I
suffering for their cause.
I suppose like a couple of months later, when you're talking back on it, that'd be entertainment, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
So, yeah.
But I feel sorry for sports like, well, I guess they're not sports, are they? Like chess and things that are more mentally.
Challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess you're saying that's something else. That's not
So-
a sport.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like I say, I don't want to rubbish those things. But I mean, to me, they're not a sport. It's like darts. To me,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
not.
yeah.
It's not. I know a lot of people would consider it
It's
a
a
sport,
game.
and it's on.
Yeah.
And it's on Sky Sports and things, but yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's a game, and at a
Yeah.
competitive level, there's an awful lot of skill in it.
Yeah.
But a sport, yeah, to me it has to be physical.
Mhm.
For video games, you've got the distinction between a game and an
Mm.
e-sport. They call them, of course. So they obviously don't describe themselves or associate themselves with sports, but e-sports.
Mm.
But what word would you give for like chess and darts if you wouldn't say they're sports?
A game.
And archery.
Yeah,
but you've got-
competition, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. They are games, aren't they?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but so
I
is
don't
a
think
regular
game-
sport and an e-sport at a local level. It's
So
a video
yeah,
game.
so what would you what if that's the road you go down, then what differentiates somebody playing video games as games versus them playing it as an e-sport? What's the differentiation
I
there?
guess monetary value if you're actually doing it as a side job or a job. I
Or
suppose
skill
level,
in terms
yeah.
of winning competitions.
So it's like the level of competition,
Yes,
or
I
the
think so.
level of
I
yeah.
suppose it's got to do with viewership as well. I suppose.
Mm.
The commercial.
but then
Yeah.
but then you know I play roller derby,
Mhm.
which I'm not going to explain the rules of roller derby because it will take me forever. However, look it up on YouTube. It's
good
brilliant. It's a brilliant sport. It's great fun.
It is chaos if you don't understand the rules.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah. But it's
fun to watch. Yeah.
But would all three of you say that's a sport?
Yes, because you get out of breath. You have to be athletic to do that,
Yeah.
and you have skill, and it's entertaining.
So I mean, Ford and Devon, would you consider that a sport or?
I don't know if I'm using my own logic with esports, then I'd have to say no. I'd say
Yeah.
it is a game. Or it may even be a competition if you've got brackets and things like that. But use my own logic with esports, I have to say no. I suppose.
Really?
Yeah.
I
See,
think
that's yeah.
I think for me, the emphasis is on the competitive nature and
Yeah.
less so on the exercise nature. So I'm quite liberal
Okay,
with my
yeah.
sports definition because I'd
It's a
say like
competition. Yeah.
like golf and stuff and
Yeah.
archery. I'd say it's this. I think they're sports, to be honest, and you know, it doesn't
Yeah.
really need a lot of
I think
exercise.
my quibble wasn't so much with the term sport; it was with the term athlete. I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was my concern. I think sport can exist if there's a
Yeah.
competitive element to it,
Mm.
whether it be on a dartboard or a chessboard or on an athletics pitch.
Yeah.
I think there can be some distinction made there.
Mm.
Certainly in terms of roller derby, or what was the other option you gave us? Or
Yeah, I
esports.
mean,
roller derby versus esports.
I suppose yeah.
They're both competitive, aren't they?
If you're calling golf a sport and archery a sport, then and I would have always called archery a sport. So in that case, why wouldn't I call somebody playing video games at a highly competitive level a sport in that sense? Kind of reflecting on Devon's segment as well, actually, just moving on. One of the big impacts of this big virus for me was about sports in particular, like where roller derby is a very physical game and it's there's a high level of contact with other teammates and people you're playing against. We obviously, not being a professional level sport, we stopped training and we stopped all games. There's been no no competitive roller derby since February, and there's been no training for any of the teams that I'm associated with since March.
Wow.
So there's been that, in one sense, the level of sport I'm participating in has gone right down.
Yeah.
And obviously initially there was no sport happening at all, so there was nothing to watch in terms of football, or racing, Formula One, or anything like that. But actually, now that those things are back on the television, I'm watching those more than I did before.
Right.
So I'm engaging less in sport myself, but I'm watching more sport. So I don't know if that's me trying to fill the hole of what not playing the sport has left. That sort of raised an interesting thing to me. Is like, what do you think draws people so much to sports, and not just playing it but watching it? Like, why do you think that is?
I think it's to do with seeing what the human body is capable of, like seeing the extremes in what a human can do. Like, I'm really interested in boxing and MMA, and the things these guys can do, like the hits that they can take and the hits they can throw, are just ridiculous. Or the kind of moves that they do in MMA. And it's just, it kind of inspires you, I guess, as well. Saying like, oh, this person can do this, and then I can do this too. Or if you don't actually want to take part of the sport as well, is I don't know. You can kind of rally behind the person as well, can't you? Or rally behind the team.
Yeah, I think it's the rallying behind thing for me personally. Not for me, because I don't actually care about sports, but in terms of like the competitive nature, being able to like root for your team and stuff like that. Because I go into work every day, and they start the conversation every day. For the first 15 minutes of work, they're chatting about what happened on football last night and stuff like that. And they say, you did this the other day, and we've lost this guy, and it's very cultural, I guess.
Yeah,
they feel like they're a part of the team.
Yeah,
It's a belonging. Yeah, the club belonging mentality.
They love to back someone, you know. And I think that's a bit of it.
I agree. Yeah, it takes you back to the base level, like gladiators in a ring, isn't it? Really, it's it's grassroots. That's where it began. Just seeing two people or two groups of people facing off and seeing who's best. It must be a human instinct thing that we love to watch.
You don't mean Gladiators, the TV show, do you?
Well, that as well. Yeah.
I love that show.
It was good. Yeah. But I'm sure from time immemorial, could say that that human beings have this instinctive thing about comparing themselves to others.
Yeah,
and that's where competition comes in. Whether you're sat around a chessboard or whether you're gladiator trying to chop somebody's head off,
I suppose that relates to what Devon said a little bit about seeing what the human body is capable of.
Boxing, I can understand that with boxing. Yeah, the admiration for somebody who's at the top of their game, and you think, wow, what has it taken for that person to get to that
dedication and I mean, I was when we were climbing Snowdon the other day, I spoke to her and I was like, what? Because I was saying, maybe we should go and climb Everest in a very jokey kind of way, because that's not something that I think. I mean, I'm sure with plenty of training I'd be capable of, but it's not something I'm willing to put the dedication in to achieve. But I was saying, what is people's obsession with climbing mountains? Because we raise people on pedestals who have not so much the smaller mountains that we have in this country, but you look at Mont Blanc and Kilimanjaro, and we say, wow, what an achievement that is. And Taylor was saying that actually it's about God designing us in a way where we want to achieve things and show what we're capable of achieving.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So that was a part of it for me, and that sort of looks at exercise, I suppose, doesn't it? And actually, it's saying, showing what an amazing body we've been given, that we can adapt and we can train and train and train and get to that point where we can do something incredible with our bodies. But I think also, I just wanted to sort of touch on it really, is that in Christianity, I think churches tend to focus a lot on obviously spiritual development, because that's a huge part of what you expect through your church. You expect to develop spiritually. We and the Bible obviously says that is the most wholesome thing you can do. But and it also in the church of Christians we talk about developing our mind. But I think often looking after our bodies is actually neglected in some ways. I don't mean in terms of being thinking about what we're putting into our bodies, because I think there's quite a good message about that in modern Christianity, but I don't think there's much about actually exercising, developing your body, and maintaining it in that way, I suppose. So I think that's a point that I sort of wanted to touch on. What do you think about that? Do you think the church, or do you think Christians in general focus enough on that? Or
It's interesting you say that. I heard once someone said to me, you should as you're growing someone up, you got to teach them a profession, a sport, and a hobby, and that sort of rounds you off. With the church, I guess they do talk a bit about like fasting and stuff like that, and I suppose that isn't physical, is it? I guess it talks quite a bit about making sure you're not a glutton and stuff like that, and it's mostly on the food aspect rather than the exercise.
Good relationship with food,
But then again, we got to realize that we're talking about Bible times. This was written thousands of years ago. We didn't have cars. People walked everywhere. Most jobs were labor jobs, so we're all working hard. I guess it wasn't the same problem,
Something that comes to mind for me when you're talking is that obviously back in the day, the church had to be very mobile and had to be ready to go at any point in time, because obviously they're under threat.
Yeah.
And obviously the Bible talks to us about us being in a world that is not our own, that we're too good for this world, and we are in the world but not of it, and that's the area around us is Satan's dominion for the time being. So if you think about it like that, you feel like you should be ready to go physically, that you should be able to, I guess, tackle what needs to be tackled if it's brought to your forefront. Obviously, physically these days, I probably can't really think of many examples when you've had to do that, but I feel like maybe, that's what comes to mind with me. So,
yeah, that's interesting. I suppose it's like you say, back in the times that the Bible was written, it was part of life, wasn't it? I suppose upkeeping your body in that way, with exercise. But I suppose as the more the human race has changed and developed, and the more sort of technology that we've introduced, I suppose the less we actually on a daily basis, unless your job specifically is quite a physical job, you don't really like I sit at a desk most of my day, and making phone calls or writing emails, so I don't really get that sort of walking around for work.
I guess the Bible does talk about your body being a temple, which you can. It's kind of vague, but you could tie that into obviously keeping it well exercised. You've got to keep God's home good,
Yeah, I suppose that's it. It's that's the thing. It's a lot of people interpret that in different ways, won't they? Actually, but I think we have to look at it like our bodies are a really important part. Mind, body, spirit. we look after our spirit, look after our mind, and we need to look after our bodies as well.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
But then as well, I think just finally, sort of on sport and exercise, I don't think it's all a body thing. I don't think the discipline that's required to run and build up running to the point where you can run a fair distance or run at a fair speed. That requires you to develop your mind and your and to be able to have the right mentality to be able to do that. And I think that's the same with all sports. But we sort of touched on the collective the collective aspect of sport as well, and I think that's a spiritual thing, and that's maybe why a lot of people who don't have Jesus actually turn to sport as a sort of their way of life, really. And I'm not saying that people who do have Jesus shouldn't follow sport, because I think there's something very useful in that. But I think there's the spiritual side of it, of being part of something, but also rooting for something and developing your own body, your mind, and bettering yourself is a wholly spiritual thing as well. So for me, I suppose that's what sport does. But
that's very good.
It's a universal language, isn't it? I mean, you don't have to believe anything in particular in order to enjoy that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like, I remember 12 years ago now, I went to 13 years ago, I went to a big scout camp with people from all over the world. And one of the main sort of features of this, we were sort of split into groups of different countries. And one of the main features of our sort of area was a five-a-side football tournament. And it didn't matter what language you spoke, you just played, and you enjoyed playing with everybody. It didn't matter where they were from. And so I suppose it was that universal language sort of thing. People understand sport, don't they? It doesn't whether or not you understand their language. You can understand the competitive or the sporting sort of element.
Yeah, was that famous story during World War II? Obviously, when both the Allied and Axis sides came together during Christmas and played some football.
Yeah,
a sport, as you say, can be very uniting, can't it?
Yeah, and that's such a touching story, isn't it? That is used today to sort of demonstrate actually we're all human, isn't it? And the fact that that's had such an impact, I suppose, throughout history, just shows how powerful it can be. I'm pretty much done on that one.
That's a good
Very good.
Yeah.
That's a lot to think about, and it's really good subject you brought to us. Thank you very much, Richard.
Paps segment. Subject.
I wish to register a complaint.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Not with me, right?
Does anybody know where that came from?
Oh,
Was it a sketch show?
Yes, Monty Python.
Parrot sketch.
Well done,
no.
well done.
Yes.
Yeah, the dead parrot sketch. Well done. Yeah. Well, I'm going to have a moan. Okay, is that all right?
Yeah.
A moan.
What else is new?
About technology.
Right.
I'm back on the technology subject again.
Yes.
Again, yeah. This time, I wanted to. I've headed my slot. Dumb phone. Okay. And I'm amazed sometimes about the advances in technology, but I'm also very, very frustrated by technology. You know that, I think, from previous episodes when I've discussed it. And I think I said to you not long ago, I think we were discussing why do we call the thing we carry around in our pocket a phone when actually the phone function is such a tiny part of what it does. Because mostly it's a calendar or a games console or
Yeah.
a television, or did I say camera? Yeah, or any number of different things. But I'm actually a bit frustrated that we call them smartphones. That's the word was getting around to saying.
Yeah.
And we all know the phrase a dumb phone is usually a brick that just makes phone calls and sends text messages. You can still buy them, can't you?
Yeah.
Because today a smartphone that connects to the internet and has all the other functionality that we've grown used to is meant to be smart. But how many times do I find myself calling my phone stupid or dumb? I do all those things we were saying in the earlier section about not talking to your children in a bad way.
Yeah.
But I say all those things to my phone.
Poor phone.
Yeah, it's a good job my phone hasn't got a conscience. But that's
Yeah.
that's the kind of direction I'm going in with this, really. The things I want my so-called smartphone to do, I want it to be smarter than it is, okay?
Right.
Because I don't think it deserves the smartphone label.
Ouch.
Yeah?
Right.
Okay, and I'm going to end, I'll say a few things that I've thought of, and then I'll say, what do you want your smartphone to do that it currently doesn't do? Okay, that's the question that you three can be thinking about. Okay, but I want my smartphone, it does this to a degree, but not good enough, to recognize my routines. I want it to know that I'm likely to leave here tomorrow morning about 8:15 and head out to my place of work for my usual Monday morning tasks. I want it to be able to tell me, oh, it's raining outside, so don't forget to put a coat on or take an umbrella. Okay, but it doesn't do that. It won't do that. I want it to suggest things that I need to do, in other words. Okay? I want it to be able to speak to me like another human being speaks to me. And I know that voice technology on your Google or your Apple or your Amazon device are more powerful than ever before, but it's still not where I want it to be. I want it to sort of almost be a third voice in the room. I know this isn't going to go down well with everybody because some people say that technology is too intrusive already, but I want it to say to me something like, instead of me saying, hey Siri, oh, shh, don't say that too loud. I want it to say, hey Andy, don't forget such and such, or hey Andy, can I speak to you? And then you say to it, yeah, what is it? And call it by something, identifying phrase. You know, I want it. I get so frustrated that sometimes I've put stuff in my phone, but it's failed to tell me about it. You know, I use my calendar on my phone a lot, and it just pop up, but it's not there with me like I really think it could be one day.
My Android phone
Yeah.
will see my emails and tell me stuff from them. Like,
Right.
if I booked a flight, which
Yeah.
obviously I've not done in this year,
Yeah.
then my Android phone will see the email come in, and then
Yeah.
a week before the flight, it will say, "This is your flight number. This is how you get your boarding pass."
Yeah.
And then the day before, it will say, or leading up to the flight, it will tell me whether that flight's running on time or things like that. And is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Well, to a degree, yes. And I think my Apple phone will do something similar. It's quite clever at recognizing things and putting them in my diary for me and things like that. You know, if I get an email, it will add appointments to my diary or ask me if I want to add that to the diary. You know, it's quite clever at things like that. But I just expect something a bit more, perhaps. Maybe I'm expecting too much.
I think I'm kind of getting what you're saying, because you can probably get apps that technically do everything that you're asking for, but would you feel confident that they will consistently do that, so you don't have to worry about the scheduling anymore, for instance?
That's right, because I think the technology lets me down already too often for me to have
so
confidence
you can't rely
in
on it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose where over, particularly up to the point where smartphones came out and they were a usable sort of thing that worked as they were supposed to work,
Mm-hmm.
which did take a while, didn't it, before they
Yeah.
really became, streamlined enough that they worked properly.
Yeah.
Before then, there'd been, 20 years of ferocious development with these things, and
Mhm.
Annually at least we were getting completely new technologies coming out, and these phones were becoming, up until the point where they became a quote smartphone, they were getting smarter and smarter, weren't they? There was new technology coming into them, and then suddenly we've sort of hit a plateau.
Yeah.
Where it's sort of not really, there's been a few developments,
Yeah.
but it's not been huge, has it?
And I know I can activate it by speaking to it, and I know it can add things to different other apps by me speaking to it, but I want it to do some thinking as well. And I think that's where the AI is that's the word I'm probably I'm dancing around, I suppose, that phrase, because for some people that's scary and it doesn't, and I know you and I, Richard, have had comments about conversations about this. And perhaps
so you're wanting it to know something without you telling it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I want it to look at my life and go, I know last week or for the last 4 weeks, I've noticed you do this at that time every day. Would you like me to help you with that in some way? Like notice that the weather's not right and I should take out a coat, scarf and gloves with me to work,
I don't like that. Nah. I want my phone to do as it's told, nothing more, nothing less.
I think it's going to have its I always want it to do. I want it to be in charge of it, but I want it to be helping my thinking rather than me having to remind it to remind me.
Yeah, for me that would be too far.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be for lots of people.
And I remember a conversation I had with a work colleague probably 8 or 9 years ago. Job long lost now. They were complaining about a works car that told them when to. This was, quite a long time ago. So, and the car was even older than that. So, and the car would tell them when to shift gear, which obviously most cars do now. And they would complain about it because they'd be saying, "Well, I'll decide when to shift gear. Thank you very much." And I suppose, would you? I suppose it's a really bad example to use with you, Andy. But would would you be happy for a car to tell you what to do?
Yeah, well, I want my car to do all my driving for me.
I know that. Yeah. Okay. Let's think of a better example.
I want it to steer and do everything. I want to be able to just lay on the back seat while it's driving me.
In other aspects of your life, say the barbecue. Yeah. Do you like to do a barbecue?
I do like to do a barbecue. Yeah, I don't want it to take over my life.
Yeah. So would you want a barbecue to sort of recommend to you when you need to do certain things?
When the burger needs turning over?
Yeah.
No, because that's taken away some of my skill, I suppose, as a barbecuer.
And that's, I suppose, that's the point I want to come to.
Yeah.
And I know this is your segment, and I'm really sorry, I don't want to hijack it, but if that would be taking away your skill, would all the other areas of your life that you do want this technology, would that not be taking away the skills that you have to do those things currently yourself?
I wanted to do the mundane so that I can focus on the important.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it can help me better. It already does some of what I want it to do already. Like it will tell me, because when I put appointments in my calendar, I also put addresses for where they are, so it knows where I'm going next, and it also knows if there's traffic between where I am now and where that is. So it will tell me when it's time to leave, which is pretty impressive, I must say. But I want another level on top of that. I want it to be able to, don't forget you need this document with you when you go there, or don't forget don't forget, like I said earlier, it's raining, take a brolly, just in case when I get out to the car, I've forgotten that thing, I've got to come back again.
Mm,
It's the mundane I want help with.
yeah, I see. Yeah.
I find my technology already too intrusive in the fact that
I'm alone on this, aren't I? Yeah.
in the fact that it tells me when I've got an email and stuff.
It tells you when you've got an email.
Yeah,
What's
I
wrong with
don't want to
that?
know.
I'm
I want to go looking for it, not be told.
Yeah, exactly. I've deactivated it, so it no longer tells me when I've got an email.
That's
why
probably
he never replies. You see, yeah.
that's probably too far the other way from me.
Yeah.
What about text messages for? Do you want to
Yeah,
fill the
You
nail
got
out?
to go into your app every time.
Texts are more urgent, aren't they?
Are they?
Yeah. No, I
Okay.
just feel like it's constantly telling me things, and I just don't want that. Thank you.
I see where you're coming from. Yeah.
I want it to be a third voice in the room when I'm a second voice in the room. I'm presuming I'm at home alone with my wife, and I've got this because I do live with just two of us here. I want it to be another person that will be a helper,
It's a bit creepy.
like a literal personal digital assistant, a PDA, like we talked about before. We've talked about that before.
Yeah, but the PDAs back in the day did like nothing compared to your phone.
They were dumb, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But I want this PDA to be like in Her, the film Her. Have you seen that?
Yeah, that's creepy as well.
Yeah. It's not creepy. I mean, I know he ends
It
up
is very
falling in
creepy.
love. He ends up falling in love with his PDA, doesn't he? And she lives in his top shirt pocket,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't necessarily think it should go that far because there's a danger that could happen in real life. Oh, my question was, what do you want your smartphone to do that it currently doesn't do?
Get better signal.
Get a better signal, yeah.
When it says it's got 4G, actually have 4G or something.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because I'm sure my 3G used to load a lot faster
Yes.
than my 4G.
Yeah.
I'm trying to load up a YouTube video that is the same resolution as you would have had like when you had 3G. So it's the exact same download rate theoretically, but it's just not loading on 4G.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Maybe you need to get 5G.
Well, I should be able to get 5G, but I have no 5G pylons around me.
Oh gosh, that's another controversial subject. 5G. Yeah. Anyway,
I just prefer the simple life. I think I like to go to what I want to be doing when I want to be doing it. That's why no emails, thank you. I'll check my emails when I want to. Thanks.
Yeah, I suppose for me, I don't want it to tell me what my emails say because that just makes me think Google is snooping on all my emails. But I'm happy to be told there's an email there, but I don't want to be told your email said this about your flight, for example.
Yeah.
You could get the email app from the email address provider that you have. Say if you've got an Outlook account, then get the Outlook app, or Gmail account, get Gmail app. Then if they want to find out, they'll know anyway because it's on their service. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, the thing that I'd want it to do that it doesn't currently do is, I suppose, act as more of a remote control for my other things. Like I want, and I know that there are apps but it depends what car you have that you can, set the heating to go on before you get in the car in the morning. That would be useful, in the dead of winter. Or send a sat nav destination to my car's sat nav. Because whilst I do have Android Auto in my car, I prefer to use the actual sat nav in the car. So I'd quite like to, if it's a bit more integrated with my car. But that would sort of depend on the car company creating that rather than the phone being capable of that, because then I know the phone is capable of that. So
I like the remote control idea. Like if you can't find a remote for the TV, you just grab your phone.
Yeah,
that'd be really good.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding all this right, is that your frustration being, that your phone is capable of such things. The technology is there.
Yes.
But the software is just not keeping up.
The functionality.
Yeah, well, it annoys me that it depends which car you buy. I suppose that's one thing you should consider when you buy the car, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, I mean, for example, my car, which in America there is an app
Oh,
to do that for my exact car in my exact specification. Apart from you can't do that.
so it's regional locks.
in the UK. Yeah, so that's annoying. That that I suppose they only let you do it in one country.
They have the exact ability, but they just switch it off
they
for
do.
you.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
And that's why I started this by saying I wish to register a complaint.
Yeah.
Overall, I'm very happy with my phone. Honestly, yeah. I just want it to do what I want it to do, and not much more.
When I step back, I am amazed at what technology can do. But how often do I find myself complaining about it? Is unreal, and that's really the bottom line, I guess.
Right.
You know?
I think I just want a simple life.
Would you?
Yeah.
Notepad and pen. That's what you want.
Yeah, I'm very old-fashioned.
Thanll you, guys. We'll just draw that to an end, I think. Thank you.
It's homework time and toodaloo.
Cool. So we're almost coming to wrapping up right now. Thank you everyone for your contributions. Just a reminder to everybody, our next episode's homework is the film Café of the year 2011. Got those little brackets now.
Well done. Yeah, in brackets.
We'll obviously going to watch that and review it next episode. Feel free to watch it as well at home and let us know what you think. You can let us know, obviously, if you're watching on YouTube in the comment section below. We've also got a Facebook group as well, so you can obviously contact us on there. On Twitter at Theory of Anything, with TING at the end, and by email if you prefer to remain confidential. The email address theoryofanything@hotmail.com.
Also, feel free to leave a like. We've been trialing a new system, and leaving a like really helps.
Yeah. And
Thank you
also,
very much.
some of us took first delivery of our new Theory of Anything t-shirts this week. So if anybody else wants a new t-shirt with our logo on and such like, I think that's all information about that's available on Facebook. Let us know.
Excellent.
And we'll get one ordered for you.
Cool.
Thank you, Richard, for being on.
Yes. Thank you, Richard. You've been a star.
Yes,
Thank you for having me.
Very interesting contributions.
He brought some intellect, didn't he, with
He did,
him?
yeah.
I thought he was just going to talk about dumb sports. But
Not football. No,
Yeah,
he was
exactly.
very interesting. Yeah.
quite interesting.
We're glad to have had you with us, Richard. Thank you very much.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Until we see you around the microphone again next time.
Bye.
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 Bye.